Hello, and thanks for joining us today for our Criterion Learning Series presentation on notifications. Let's go ahead and switch over here to the system so we can talk about this. As always, we do have a Q&A open as well as a chat. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to put those in the Q&A or the chat, and we'll be happy to answer those questions. If we're not able to answer them during the presentation, then we will certainly follow up and make sure those answers reach you so that we can get all those questions answered if you have any. All right, so what we're going to be talking about today is notifications. And I do have a couple. You can see over here on the right side of my screen over here showing me some notifications that are here for Ted to look at. So he has one for a time off request that was submitted for approval, and another one for somebody applied for a job, and an employee goal was submitted. So those are examples of some notifications. And these are notifications, obviously, within self-service. So notifications really are about two things. One is to let you know something was approved or rejected. So you made a request to get something done, and it's been approved or rejected. Also, you'll see ones here to let you just know that one was submitted. And then also, if something has been sent to you as an approver, you'll get a notification that you need to do something like approve a time off request or a form or something along those lines. So those are examples of notifications. And I'm showing them here in self-service. Now, very simple to clear these out. So yes, I realize I submitted this for approval. I'm going to just check the box there to clear out that notification. You'll also be able to go into your settings up here under notifications, and you'll see here there's a couple things. So one is I can set my phone number here so that I can get text messages for notifications if I would like. Now, that does require them to be enabled. Of course, if the company has not enabled it for anybody, I can't just opt into something that doesn't exist. But if I don't have my phone here and they're enabled for the employer, I can just hit this little pencil and use my drop-down to select my phone number. Now, you'll see here send code. That's how we verify that it's actually a viable phone to send messages to. So what will happen is you'll get a text message, you'll have a code, you'll enter it in that code field and hit save, and that's how we verify the number. And then the messages will go out. So where's it coming from, of course, is your profile. When you go into demographics here, you'll see mobile phone. So that's where it's pulling from. That's where we get that from. So that's how they can opt into that. And then you'll see the other notifications in here as well, where I can see what's enabled here for email and for ESS. And then what happens is once this is set, you'll have a new column here that says SMS. You'll be able to see all those. All right, so you can see which ones are turned on and so forth in my system here. All right, so now let's look at the settings for how this works. So over here is where you're going to see your settings for your notifications. So under system configuration, you're going to have two things here: notifications and notification layouts. So notifications allows you to turn them on, and you'll notice this is by employer. So the first thing you need to do, of course, is to make them active. If it's not active, it can't go out via email, SMS, or self-service because it's not turned on and it can't send out. So it needs to be active in that situation. And then once it's active, then you could turn on as an administrator email, SMS, and self-service. Now, just a quick little tip on this is, first off, these are sorted, you'll see here alphabetically when I click here, but you can also sort by these columns. When we add a new notification, we do not usually make them active by default because we want people to opt into those things. So that's how we do that. We go ahead and turn them off. So you'll need to come in and turn them on. Now, sometimes we'll add many of them, or maybe it's further down the list, you don't know where they are. So if you check or click on here, it'll sort this by the status, and you can easily turn them on very quickly. All right, you'll see that here, for example, in SMS, I've got a whole bunch that are not turned on. And then I'll go down to the bottom and I'll see the ones that are, well, maybe I only have a couple that are turned on down here at the bottom. So I can quickly turn them on. You'll see as I click, it actually is scrolling up the list. It's resorting them by the status. So I can easily turn them on very quickly if I would like to do that. Now, if I go down, you'll see, of course, now all those I just checked are now turned on. All right, so you can see how that works there. Same thing would happen with email or ESS. And you can see that. Now, not everything has all three. Some of them are just email. Some of them are just SMS or self-service. Of course, most of them are all three. Just a few of them, we don't have that option there. But just a little tip there. Now, this is, again, by employer. So if you do this in one employer, you do this in another. You do this in the other one as well. I believe we also have a data import for this, if I'm not mistaken, under system. I think we have notifications in here. I might be wrong. I thought we had it. I'm using our general. But that's the way I've always done it, is just do the notifications and sort by this, and then you turn them all on very quickly, just like this. You'll see here. I could do it very fast. Anytime we had new ones, I always come into my environment, not my training environment, but to my environment to turn them on very quickly. All right, so just a little tip there. So that's how you turn them on. Of course, you need to hit update here for it to save those changes. And then it'll say saves. They're saved up there. And then, of course, you would need to go to the other company. Here's an example where they're not turned on. And again, I can just very quickly like that. All right, so that's the notifications, just enabling them and then which method they're going to be going out. Now, the actual layouts of those notifications are also available here under notification layouts. Now, this again is by employer. So you'll see, which employer I'm in here. And then we actually have the ability here to group them up. It makes it a little easier to find them and to see those here. So you'll see the group right here. So as an example, maybe I am really interested in certifications, and I could see the notification layouts for certifications. And then some of them I have the ability to do custom notifications. Others are just going to be the default. You'll see the type right here. So when I do custom, there are no custom ones for certifications. When you do custom, we only have it for forms or performance reviews right now. All right, so just be aware of that. All right, but let's just look at certifications. I'm just picking one. It doesn't really matter which one I'm looking at here. So these are expiration and overdue notifications. And you'll see one, employee and manager. Now, of course, the name is going to depend on whatever the situation is that you're looking at or whatever the group. Some of them might be workflows, others might be, delegation or something like that. So, of course, you can, look at those in there. But I'm going to click in here and just show you what this looks like. So when I come in here, of course, now when it's the default one, you cannot change the name or the group because it's default. Here you'll see the address that is going to be sent from. So by default, we send them from no-reply@criterionhcm.com. Now you could change this. If you want to have HR@company.com or something like that, you can change this. Of course, this is the name it comes from, and this is the email address. So you could use your own, or maybe there's like a HR group or something like that. You want to put that in here. Now this could be for each layout. You could have different ones. So maybe there's like training@company.com that I want, because it's something to do with certifications and training and so forth. So you might change that right there. Or maybe there's like a training person who's in charge of certifications. You might want yours there. This little green check mark means that it's been verified. We do require that you verify an email address before we can use that in the from. What that does is similar to the SMS, is we send a link. What'll happen is, if I do training@company.com, I'm not going to click that because I don't have that email address. But what it'll do is send me a link, and then I click on that link that verifies that it's a valid email address, and so you can send from it. So that's what that would be there for. This will not allow you to save if it's not a verified email address. Let me go back in there. All right, attachment is if you want to include some type of attachment with this email notification. You'll notice I have SMS and ESS as well. We don't have attachments for those, only for email. So maybe there's a PDF you want to include or something like that. So you could attach that there. Here's the subject for this one. Now, each time I go into one of these things, they're going to have different fields that are going to be used as tokens. So you'll see certificate name expires on expiry date. So of course, this wouldn't work if I was doing, let's say, a time off request, because it's not tied to a certification or expiration date. So that wouldn't work in that situation, but it does in this one. How do you know those tokens? Well, in our help. So you'll see here, I go down, there's going to be notification layout tokens right here under the body. I know I'm talking about the subject line, but we have them listed under here. So if you click this, this will load a new tab and you can see the different ones that are here. So you'll see how it's by the group and certification name or certificate name, expiry date, employer name, first name. So you can see those in this situation. All right, of course, there's many, many, many ones. I'm not going to go through every field, but there's a lot that are here. Okay. So you'll see those. That's how you'll know what it is. Now, I'm not going to change this, so I don't need to worry about this, but I could say like your certificate name expires on blah. So this might say like your CPR certificate expires on October 1st. All right, and then here's the body. So this is the default body for the email here. You'll see, of course, you got these controls for the fonts and so forth. So you can change the size of the fonts and make it bold and so forth. So you can do all that. You'll see if I click the little hamburger menu, I can add in other things as well. Maybe there's a link that you want to add in there, or you want to highlight a color, put a list or whatever. You can see those in there. If you want to edit the HTML, you can see that. So if you're like really into HTML, you could see that, right? Now, the other thing, of course, is if you're using these controls here, it's going to edit the HTML, so you could do that. But you'll see here, I can type in here whatever I want. So because the subject is this, maybe I don't want this in here. You know, of course, that's up to you. So you could put that there if you like. Hi, first name, your certificate, blah, expires on expiry date. Please obtain and upload a new certification or certificate by the expiry date. So, you know, maybe you want to change this message and say your certificate expires on this date. Please obtain and upload a new certificate by, and then put the same date there. Now, that way you actually have the date so they know when they need to do this. Now, if I edit this and maybe I make a mistake, I accidentally delete something, I can't remember what was there, and I'm saying, shoot, I want to get back to how it was before I came in here and did anything, I can hit revert to default. And that will kind of restore everything. Now, that does it to everything, though. So the from, the subject, the body, all of it does get changed. So even if I just messed up down here in the body, it's going to change the subject line. So just be aware of that. And that doesn't matter if I've already saved this. It's going to go back to our default message. All right, so that's how that'll work there. Now, so if you changed it 6 months ago and now you want to set it back to the original one, that's what that would do. It's not going to save and go back to like the last version. It's going to go back to the very first version, which is our version. SMS. So this is the text message that would go out. Now you'll see here, this one has a length because we're using text messaging. You may remember that text messaging is 140 characters. So we're limited on what you could do there. This is telling me so far I've used 40. All right, and as I please call Steve to discuss. Oops. All right, you'll notice how now it says 70. So it's letting me know here how many characters this is. If you will maybe have like a website they're going to go to, something like that, you do need to be careful with this because if you put down like www.google.com or something, that's a lot of characters. So there are URL shorteners that you may want to use for those things. We don't like have one built in, but there are some that you can go out there and get a shortened URL to save space in an SMS if you want to use something like that. All right, and then again, I can revert to default. So that gets rid of that. I added in there. And then here's the ESS message. That's what you would see over here, whoops, back on this screen. So maybe, sorry about that. Maybe you want to make this a little bit more verbose than just saying certificate name expires. You might want to say your certificate expires on this date, you know, basically like the same message here. You might want to change that to this. And again, you have these controls. And you'll notice SMS doesn't have those because we don't have the ability to do like bold and italicized and images and so forth in an SMS. Now I know, of course, people text message, you know, images and stuff like that, but we don't support that. So that's what you can do over here. So this does not have a limit. You'll notice there's no character count here, but just be reasonable. You don't want to have like 10 paragraphs because obviously this is not a huge box to read in. If you made it really long, it might be difficult to read. I'd say if you want to have a long message, put it in the email, maybe abbreviated version of that in the ESS. All right, so if you do make some changes, whatever they might be, of course, you want to save those changes, and then this notification layout is ready to go. So that's how that works there. Now, of course, there might be some that are not active. That goes back to this notifications right here. So if I do that as an example, let's say I just make those two inactive. When I go to my notification layouts, let me clear this out. I can show which two, or should show which two are inactive here. Oh, they'll be somewhere. I forget which ones they were. Let's see, can I sort by this column? On the bottom somewhere, they should be in here. Oh, I might not have saved, but that'll allow you to view those if you made those inactive. Let's talk about custom ones. So custom allows you to do things that are for forms and performance reviews, because you might want to have a not use it like a generic message for a performance review or a form. You know, instead of just saying like the form is ready, you might want to put in there something more specific about that form or that performance review. So you'll be able to do that right here. So this one is a little different because you've got the name that you can customize. You have the layout in here for what's happening with this form. So for an example, the notify initiator. So when somebody initiates the form, this would be the message that would go out to them. So when you're doing forms, you have 5 different choices here of what you're going to do. If you don't do one, it's going to go back to using the default for whatever form it is you choose. So let's say I was doing an I-9 form and I don't do the notify initiator one, but I do one for the performer and I remind the performer that they need to see the documents or something like that. So I do just that one. When I go to initiate it and it gets approved and all those other things are on here, it's going to use the default if I only do it for the performer. That would be the person who's going to like approve it or verify it. So just be aware of that there. When I do performance reviews, again, you have different things here. Notify manager, notify reviewer. So if I don't do all 3 of these, it will be just for that particular performance, that particular layout. Okay, so I'm going to do like, let's do this notify performers one. So here, which form am I attaching this to? Let's say the form I-9. So this is going to go out only when the form I-9 is done. All right, all the other forms that I got out here, unless I set one up, it's not going to go out for those other forms. Okay, the name of this, of course, I do need to put a name, so I might want to just call it form I-9, I-9 notify performers. You know, don't just call it like custom layout 1 or something, because you may not remember which one's which. When you see that huge list of notifications, you might not remember which one it is. So you might want to maybe call it custom layout, but then you give it a better description than just custom layout. So maybe call it custom layout form I-9 notify performers. All right, who's it from? So remember what I just said about the setting up the who is it coming from. You can go back to our no reply Criterion, hcm.com if you'd like, or if you want to use your own, so you can do whatever you like. Just realize, of course, if you do this message, this one, if people reply, it doesn't go anywhere. It goes into basically a black hole. So people can't reply and you get it. It's just no one's gonna get it. All right, you'll notice though this changed to green. So once the email address has been confirmed at least once, it'll turn green anytime you use it. So I don't need to re-verify every time. All right, maybe I want to do some type of attachment here. I could do that there. Maybe for this, since you're notifying the performers, you have like a little PDF cheat sheet for what they can get. Of course, the I-9 form says those documents, but maybe you want to also include some type of cheat sheet, something like that. All right, and then you'll say, let's say form I-9 has been submitted for your approval by, now I can go ahead and use those fields out here. Okay, and I can do that here. So I would have to go down to like the ones for forms and find out here. I could say, maybe employee name. That's employee number. First name. So that's going to be the person's name on there. So I'm just going to copy that and paste it. Oops, not this tab, excuse me. Boom. Now they may not know who that is, so I might want to come out here and find whatever the last name on. Of course, I could type these. So I happen to know its last name, I could type that in there. You don't have to do the copy and paste. So just an example there. And then here would be the body of the email. Of course, as I mentioned, you can use all these controls. So I could say at first name, at last name, has submitted, oops, and I'm not typing well today, their Form I-9 for your approval. Please verify their documents and approve. Whatever I might want as my message. I could type in whatever I want. Of course, I could have copied that out of like some Word document or something and pasted it in here. That's up to me how I do that in there, but I can put in my message there. Now you'll see, of course, we don't have the revert to default because this is a custom. So I can't revert back to anything because there was nothing to start with. So that button's not here, and I'll go ahead and save. Now I can now find that one. If I go up to custom, it's going to be my only one. Well, I've added a couple. Oops, I guess I've done this one before. But you see here, now here are all the other ones. Now, of course, I can narrow this down to like say, oh, just the forms ones. And then, of course, this performance review one will drop off. But you can see those out there. Now, what happens if you do two of the same? Tell you the truth, I don't know what would happen if I did two of the same. It's probably going to send both. I'd have to check. I haven't tested that out. I forgot that I already set this one up because we added this feature a while ago, and I think I set it up in like our webinar for that. So I don't know what would happen if we did two of the exact same forms. Now, maybe this is a different Form I-9, something like that. So you'll see that example there. It probably would send both. My guess, I may have to test that out and let our team know what happens if you have the same one set up twice for the same form. Of course, I can see them in here. Now, if I don't like this one anymore, I can delete it. All right, so boom. Now I've only got the one. All right, so you can see that in there, and there we go. That's adding a custom one. Of course, I can do that for performance reviews, just to show you an example of a performance review one. You'll see this one, performance review. Of course, this one has a little different because this one, I'm tying it to a review period versus a form, but otherwise it's basically the exact same thing. So notify the manager. So 2020 review, obviously a couple years old, is now open. And it's specifically for this review period. So now, of course, a review period doesn't have to be tied to a specific year. Maybe you want to say the annual review period is open or the new hire review period is open, whatever it is. Of course, you might have that differently in there. So you can see how that works there. All right. Now, what I would say is if you're going to do these things, what you should probably do is test these out, like initiate a form for yourself or like somebody that you get their, like the approval, just to make sure the message looks nice when you look at it through the email. It's always a good idea to test those types of things out. One of the things is that you can't use the sandbox for that because the sandbox doesn't send emails. And so you have to do this in live, but doesn't mean it has to be like a live form. You can always start an I-9 form or whatever it is. Maybe you're like notifying the performer. You make yourself the performer for that, so it goes to you. Make sure the message looks nice. All right, if you don't want to use it anymore, of course, I can make it inactive. And then I have this toggle here to not show that. All right, so that is basically how these work here. And you can see those notifications out there. Now, there are, of course, notifications that also show in the mobile app. You'll notice we don't have a special column here for mobile because we don't have them broken out separately. Basically, the ESS ones go to mobile. So like if I did there's an approval for me to do some form or something like that, I would see that one in mobile and the message would be the ESS one. All right, so pretty quick one today. We're not going to go over. I think there were some questions that came in and I think our teams answered those questions. So let's just review those. Looks like one person was having a problem with audio, and I do apologize if it wasn't working. I think I would have known way more than 25 minutes in if there was other problems. So don't have any problems. We just had one person have some audio issues, so we do apologize for that. Of course, we do record these, so assuming my audio is working, you'll be able to watch this and listen and revisit this if you have any questions on it. Let's couple things I want to bring up. Now, maybe there's something you think should be a notification that we don't have right now. Let's go to the help here and remind you that you can go to this new ideas section to suggest new notifications or suggest an edit to the notifications or whatever. Of course, you can make your own, but maybe you notice in the default there's a misspelling or something like that. And you say, hey, it'd be really great if you didn't misspell the word notification, something like that. So you can come over here to the feature request and you can post something like that out there. If you do see something like a misspelling, which happens because of course we're all humans, take a screenshot of it or highlight it or something like that, copy and paste, and do a new post. Now, maybe you have an idea for a notification that we don't have yet, or some other feature. So you'll see, some examples here of different ones. Maybe there's a token that you wish we had that we don't have right now. Go ahead and make that suggestion here. The other thing I would recommend, if you have some time, I know everybody's super busy, but if you do have some time, maybe every once in a while, come here and see if there's stuff that you see out here. Obviously, you can see some people have posted some different things out here where they wish the system did a certain thing. It may not be related to notifications at all, but you might say, oh, you know what? I really think this manager team certification would be a great idea. You click into here, you read what Jenna said, and you say, yeah, this would be, great. You'll see, in fact, Nicole and Heather both agreed that this would be great. So you might want to post out here or at least upvote and let us know that this is something that we need. And so you can do that here. If you want to, of course, submit a new feature here, you'll see I can hit a new post and, what's the title of this? New notification or whatever. And then you can put that out here and submit this. And we do go through this list and we pull ideas out of here all the time. And we add those to the system. So just a reminder of that out there. That's under your help menu to be able to do that. So let's look at our upcoming schedule, and hopefully I'll be able to watch out a minute or so early here. So let's go back over to our slideshow. So our upcoming web series ones, the next 4 are out here. Of course, we are going to be doing some year-end stuff, and we're going to try to fit in one of these to talk about some changes that affect 401k and stuff like that in the US. So we might move one of these further out. But for now, as of today, here's our schedule. Compensation management in a couple of weeks. So we're going to talk about how that works in the system. You can use that for making pay changes, either like one person at a time or, even better, a group of people. You need to get merit increases across the board for a manager or something like that. We're going to try to do a pretty brief overview of payroll processing. Obviously, that could be very complex. Some companies have a lot more steps involved or a lot more complexity than others. We're going to do it from a high level. So we're going to get it all done in 30 minutes here, talk about payroll processing on the 3rd of October. Middle of October, employee management. So things like mass hire, mass termination, mass leave of absence, things like that are going to be covered under employee management. And then at the end of October, we're going to cover on Halloween, people going out on leave of absence. It could be kind of scary. So let's talk about that. That's a new feature we introduced about a month ago in our update, actually a month and a half ago in our update that came out at the beginning of the quarter. So we're going to go in deep dive into that a little bit more than we covered in the webinar. So that's our upcoming schedule. Like I mentioned, we might move things around based off of needing to get some things out, some information out about some changes that are coming out. Of course, further out than this, we don't have the schedule, we don't have to flood this, but we will be talking about year end. So we did that last year, but we always are going to do that every year. So we're going to talk about it in the US, in Canada, some of the year end processes and how that all works, and doing things like your W-2s and your T4s and so forth, and how that all works in the system. So thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time. As I mentioned, we do record this, and so it'll be available in our on our videos on YouTube and so forth in a couple of days. If you do have questions, you'll see there at the bottom our phone number, our email address. So please reach out to us if you have any questions. Otherwise, thank you again for joining us, and I hope you all have a nice day.